All right, welcome everybody to the Chris HOJ-cast, episode number 2. Still rolling with that name momentarily until something better comes along. Although there could be some inertia here, and I'm already so used to calling it that it's just going to continue on. It would be on brand for me to come up with a terrible podcast name and then keep it that has absolutely no searchability. And we'll just keep my videos dwelling in obscurity, which is where I'm most comfortable at anyway. So thank you to everybody who checked out the first episode, all 10 of you or so. And now we are moving on here to episode number 2. And I'm going to give you the outline for today's show. I'm gonna have 3 different segments. The first one, maybe this will become a recurring segment. I thought about it when I was driving home today from my dad's house after watching Game 6 of the Nuggets Thunder series with Christina, my brother, and my dad. And the idea I came up with was a recurring segment called "Uncomfortable NBA Truths" and how to counter them. And this will be a fun one to start off with. And what I'm going to do for this episode, it's going to have a camera on me, obviously, and then I'm going to be reading from this note file here. I'm just going to let you see what the note file is, and we can, it's like a visual aid or something. And for podcast listeners, you don't need to be able to see it. I'm going to dictate everything that appears on that note file anyway, but it might be interesting for viewers to be able to see it and as we work through it. The second segment of today's show is going to be a comparison of Nikola Jokic versus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in this playoff series so far that's deadlocked at 3-3 going into Game 7. And I'm going to use one metric to evaluate who has been the winner of this MVP showdown. And probably wouldn't be a huge spoiler to guess who wins that based on the fact that I'm the person who's making this video. So third, I mean, come on, we know that I have a bias here, but still, I'm going to present evidence and not just fan takes. And then finally, we have a Jokic card from the PC box that I broke out to enjoy after really having a nice Game 6 viewing experience and understanding that there might only be one game left in Nikola Jokic's season. So let's enjoy the moment. And that's sort of also responsive to a comment that I got from episode 1 that said, hey, maybe talk about some card stuff too. I mean, yeah, there's going to be a lot of card stuff eventually coming. So, all right, let's get to segment 1 here. Truths that basketball fans don't want to admit and how to counter them. Okay. So this is just me having fun. And the subject of today is going to be Jalen Brunson. And, if you're a Brunson fan, you're going to get pissed off. If somebody was doing this about one of my favorite players, I'd get pissed off. But see it through to the end because I'm going to present both sides. I'm going to present my side, and then not that it's my side. I'm going to present one side of evidence, and I'm going to present my other side of evidence, the counters. And there are more counters than starting arguments. And, the thing that kind of gets me thinking about this is that fans of Jalen Brunson they have one of the largest tendencies to pull a John Halliburton on me. That's John Halliburton is Tyrese Halliburton's dad when he went up to Giannis with the towel or the shirt or whatever. Yeah, Brunson fans love to do that to me about Luka since they know I'm a Luka fan. And Luka just, for myriad reasons, probably commands the most hatred of any player, I think, under the age of 30, probably, in the NBA. And like when people get mad about Luka, they just DM me to throw all the attacks at me. And so naturally, I love to banter. And it just so happens that a decent number of these people have a Jalen Brunson affinity. So when they attack me about Luka, it usually is accompanied by some Jalen Brunson propaganda. It's almost always like some video of Kendrick Perkins on ESPN or something. And so I have developed some quick ways to jab them back. But now I'm going to show how you would reply to my jabs. But the first thing we have to start with here is there's a very uncomfortable truth that NBA fans are not going to want to talk about. Analysts certainly will never tell you this. You will not hear this on ESPN, even though these facts are easily accessible. And this is that the New York Knicks were better without Jalen Brunson during the regular season this year. And here is the case for that. So this first data is coming from a really cool website called Data Baller. And notice here, low leverage removed. So the data I'm going to present to you has garbage time removed. Jalen Brunson played 2,100 minutes for the New York Knicks this season. And during those minutes, he had a net rating of plus 1.9. Net rating simply is the point differential per 100 possessions while the player's on the floor. So the Knicks did win their minutes by 1.9 points per 100 possessions against their opponents when Brunson was on the floor. But here's the key part. During the 1,344 minutes that Jalen Brunson was off the floor, the New York Knicks won their minutes by plus 10.5 points per 100 possessions. So they were an all-time great team when Jalen Brunson was off the floor for the 1,344 minutes. Garbage time removed, by the way. Not like this was racked up during blowouts where the Knicks, starters were left in versus the other team's bench or something. This is garbage time removed. And with Brunson, they were a fine team, a lower level playoff team. That's what a plus 1.9 net rating would correspond with. So what's the difference here? 10.5, but a minus 8.6 net rating swing with garbage time removed for Jalen Brunson, which is really bad. Okay, but there can be confounding factors here, but and there are ways to reply to this. I'm going to give some of the ways. There are other ways to reply to it. I'm not going to give them yet, but that's coming. But there's no use in denying this. It needs to be countered, but not denied. These are facts. This did happen this season. And 2,100 minutes and 1,344 minutes are pretty big sample sizes. And to give a comparison to a teammate, Karl-Anthony Towns played 2,237 non-garbage time minutes. The Knicks were a plus 6.9 in net rating when he was on. Very good. And when he was off, the Knicks were a plus 2.2 net rating in 1,208 minutes. So Karl-Anthony Towns had a positive net rating swing of plus 4.7. Hopefully that mental math was done properly there when I calculated that. Let's keep going here. So then another point of emphasis when I want to jab Jalen Brunson supporters is that the New York Knicks won 61.5% of their games with Brunson this season. Brunson played exactly 65 games, just enough to qualify for those awards. And yeah, they had a 61.5 win percentage with him playing. Well, in the 17 games without Jalen Brunson, the New York Knicks had a win percentage of 64.7. So their win percentage was a little better than 3 percentage points improved when Brunson didn't play. And then back to net rating, in games where Brunson played for the Knicks, their net rating was plus 3.9, which is a solid net rating for a team. It's like a 4 or 5 seed, typically, roughly. And in games where Brunson didn't play, they were a plus 5.4 net rating, which is like a 2 seed, 3 seed, something like that. In a really tough conference, maybe even a 1 seed. So there's a mountain of evidence here, and it's not complicated stuff that says when Brunson was in games and on the floor, the Knicks were good. When he was out of games and off the floor, they were even better. So let's go back to the title list for a second. Truths that basketball fans don't want to admit and how to counter them. This is one. Jalen Brunson, everybody loves Brunson. Great underdog story. I've followed more of Brunson's career than most because I was following the Mavericks closely when he was on the Mavericks. Watched him get played off the floor during this Clippers series. I watched him ascend to stardom during the Utah Jazz series and put the team on his back and carry it when Luka missed those first 3 games. I've really seen his career develop. I just think he's a really cool player too. Like it's difficult to dislike him. Okay. But, so how would you reply to the stuff that I said if you wanted to jab me back? And so here are some of the counters that I would reply to me with. I guess I can't shake some of my law school training here to argue things from all sides. The first counter, I think I have 4 coming up here. The first counter is that, and remember, the counter is not denying the original facts presented. The counter is simply saying, yeah, but. And so the first yeah, but is, okay, that's true for the regular season, but in the playoffs, Jalen Brunson's net rating swing has reversed. So in the playoffs, Jalen Brunson with garbage time removed, his net rating is minus 0.9, which like sometimes happens. Like, in the playoffs, you play you play the same team over the course of a whole series. And, sometimes like one game of that series, the team just blows out the other and the rest of the games are close and your team wins more of the close games and you advance or whatever. I mean, weird things like that can happen. But anyway, Brunson has a slightly negative net rating in the playoffs, minus 0.9. But when he's off the floor, and by the way, Brunson has 403 non-garbage time minutes in these playoffs. When he's off the floor, which is a small sample, it's only 88 minutes, Brunson, the Knicks net rating without Brunson during those 88 minutes is minus 5.6 points per 100 possessions. So much better net rating swing during the playoffs. And this is much closer to what we would expect based on Brunson's reputation. We would expect this team to be, roughly 5 points per 100 possessions worse with him off the floor. So the playoff data is pouring in. The second way that I would counter me is I would bring up the fact that X, regularized adjusted plus minus, and box plus minus indicate that Brunson is a plus 2.5 to a plus 3.3 points per 100 possessions improvement over an average player. So X Rap'em has Brunson at plus 2.5 on the regular season. So that's right in the range of Kevin Durant and OG Anunoby. Chris Dunn makes an appearance here. And the first column here is their impact offensively on offensive possessions. Their regular adjusted plus minus stabilized with the Bayesian prior in offensive possessions. And the second column is defensive. And in the defensive column, minus is good. So like when you look at Dunn, he's a little bit above net neutral on offense, but on defense, minus 2.2 points per 100 possessions impact, which leads, when you combine those two, to a plus 2.5 net impact across offensive and defensive possessions. So he's a surprisingly high ranking player in X Rap'em, but Zion is there. So Brunson here, he's in this category. Jaren Jackson Jr., Evan Mobley, good company, Kevin Durant, etc. Al Horford. So X regular adjusted plus minus has him at plus 2.5, and this is X regular adjusted plus minus. Like I said, it uses a Bayesian prior. It uses a statistical prior that includes box score, but also play-by-play and tracking stuff to stabilize and to help complement the relatively small sample of an 82-game season, which years of adjusted plus minus modeling and even regular adjusted plus minus modeling is shown to be very noisy without the statistical prior to stabilize it. So XRAPM says you can forget your net rating swing because when we use this methodology, which controls for quality of teammates and uses a statistical prior, Brunson is a plus 2.5. And then box plus minus, which is kind of like X Rap'em without the adjusted plus minus modeling. It's just it's just like the statistical prior component of X Rap'em in a certain sense. We don't need to go too far into the methodology of this today, but it also has Brunson in league with players like Kyrie Irving, who's a plus 3.4. Brunson's a plus 3.3 BPM. Kevin Durant is a plus 3.2. That's really interesting. Brunson and Durant are both really close to each other in this total box score model that's estimated impact, which is BPM, and also in the XRAPM model too. They're right next to each other. But then Brunson is trying to be like Desmond Bane, Santi Aldama, very underrated bench player, Isaiah Hardenstein, Kyrie Irving, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Paolo Banchero. Like that's the company that he's in. So these two metrics, which are designed to take into consideration more than just net rating swing, to control for teammates, to use box score production to correlate with performance across really big samples. These are saying that Brunson is clearly a positive over a league average player. So that's a pretty tough blow to the points that I'm making. Okay, and then here's the third counter to my points. In 2023-24, Jalen Brunson's net rating swing, so last regular season, his net rating swing, according to Data Baller, garbage time removed, was plus 9.9. Okay, so last season, very good. Brunson was a plus 8.4 net rating and in 2,528 minutes. And in the 1,005 minutes without him, the Knicks were minus 1.5 net rating. So you can bring that in to say, look, there was something weird and noisy about the data this year. Maybe it's, acclimating to a new teammate. He lost DiVincenzo, the Towns coming in. You got to figure out how to play with him. Brunson maybe been dealing with some injuries and stuff. But all of a sudden, you start throwing the BPM and the XRAPM at me, and then you throw at me the net rating swing from last season and Brunson's net rating from last season and his playoff net rating swing this season. And all of a sudden, you've really made my numbers look like outliers. You just start piling up all this other evidence, and that says, your numbers are the outliers here. We have much more data from many other ways of analyzing Brunson's season that and his trajectory as a player that suggests that there's some noise somewhere in these net rating swing numbers that you're bringing up. And then finally, the fourth counter, this is more narrative than empirical, but it is emerging from data. The fourth counter is Jalen Brunson scores a ton of points in the playoffs while his team wins playoff series. And Jalen Brunson has awesome fourth quarters. So first of all, in the 2025 NBA playoffs, Jalen Brunson is tied for the fourth most points per game with Paolo Banchero at 29.4 points per game, trailing only Donovan Mitchell, 29.6 points per game, Luka Doncic at 30.2 points per game, and Giannis with 33 points per game. So that's really amazing company for Jalen Brunson to be in. And then I pulled this, which is a really cool stat. I looked at Brunson's true shooting percentage and his raw plus minus by quarter in the 2025 playoffs. I think Brunson has played 11 playoff games. In quarter one, in all quarters one, Brunson's true shooting percentage was 49.3, which is not good. League average for point guards is around like 55. So not good. And his raw plus minus in all of those quarters is -7. In quarters two, Jalen Brunson has a true shooting percentage increase to 54.3%. Still below average for point guard, but almost there. -32 raw plus minus. That's bad. That's an interesting trend. Seems like Brunson's getting smoked in his minutes in the second quarters. In quarters three, Brunson's true shooting percentage takes another small bump up to 55.8%. Now he's at league average for point guard. Still losing the minutes on average or overall, -9 across all quarters three. And then quarters four, where Jalen Brunson surges to a 61.6 true shooting percentage, which is elite, significantly higher than the average point guard, and an incredible +43 plus minus in fourth quarters. Now still losing his minutes overall, barely, but still losing them in the playoffs. But in fourth quarters, he's just been magnificent. Okay, let's move on to the next segment of the show. And I hope that was fun, because I have slander for all types of players. But what fun is it if I just get to beat up on players and nobody knows how to come back at me? I mean, I'm sure people do out there, but like the hobby friends and collector friends I talk to, they probably have more important things going on in their lives than me. And so they don't have time to comb through all this stuff. So I have fun sort of debating back against myself. Doesn't make the points that I throw out any less true. And I think that's an important distinction to make. It still is true, to review, that the Knicks had a better winning percentage without Brunson. They had a much better net rating without Brunson, and Brunson's co-stars had better net ratings when on than off. All those things are still true, but we can add a lot more context to it and sort of shine a light on the fact that data might not be representative of Brunson, but instead it's an outlier in some regard, or it's not properly capturing, because of noise, Brunson's impact. All right, so let's move on to the second segment of today's show. And this segment is called the MVP Candidates Battle in Net Points. So net points is Dean Oliver's proprietary statistic that he now is flying under the ESPN Analytics banner. You can access all this stuff anytime you want at espnanalytics.com. Oliver has stated and explained briefly in his book, Basketball Beyond Paper, that net points is an impact metric that is trying to allocate how much of a margin of victory or loss in a game belongs to all the various individual players on a team. So it's just Oliver's route of getting to player impact. in terms of how much a player contributes to a margin. And so Oliver has a tweet a little bit later that kind of helps explain this or reinforce it. But that's the way to think of it is just that these numbers are, how much a player relative to his teammates is contributing to the margin of victory or defeat. And so we've had 6 games so far in the Denver-Oklahoma City series. And I'm purposely going to use the net points metric here rather than just like who scored the most points per game and who has the most rebounds per game and who has the most assists per game and who has the best raw plus minus and who has the best shooting percentage. And, because anybody can look that up. People are talking about that in other podcasts. This is readily accessible, easily accessible information. I want to try and bring a different perspective. And I frankly belong to the school of thought that production is very cool. When you have a guy who scores a ton of points or racks up a ton of box score metrics, it's fun. It's really fun to watch it happen. It's exciting. It's impressive. But I think ultimately the point of basketball is winning your minutes and having an impact on the floor that leads to winning the minutes, whether you contribute a ton of box score stuff or whether you contribute almost none. It doesn't really matter. What matters is your impact on winning. And that's what impact metrics like net points tries to get to. It's also what XR, APM, and BPM from the previous segment try to get at. So let's do this net points march. It's very cool that we have this broken down on a game-by-game basis, thanks to Dean Oliver. So the stat lends itself to this type of analysis. So in game 1, which if I recall correctly, the Nuggets stole on a late Aaron Gordon three-pointer. In game 1, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had a net points score of +2, and Jokic had one of +8.6, and Jokic was a game high. That's what this asterisk indicates, game high. So Jokic was pulled out to a big lead in game 1. In game 2, which was the Oklahoma City massacre during Scott Foster's return to officiating after 2 months off, Gilgeous-Alexander was a +12, which was a game high, and Jokic was a -8, which is just atrocious. It basically brought Jokic's net impact in net points on the series back to 0. Game 3, neither Gilgeous-Alexander nor Jokic was a game high. This is the only game of the series where that's true. In that game, Gilgeous-Alexander was -2.3. Jokic was a -5.7, and Jokic's negative score was all offense. He was like a -10 in his offensive net points. It was his defensive net points that brought it back up to a -5.7. But this was a game that, because of excellent performance by Jokic's teammates, Denver was able to pull out that game in overtime, and then Jokic had a nice overtime. Game 4, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander slumps to a -1.5 net points. So Shai has now strung together 2 negative games after Jokic has strung together 2 extremely negative games. Jokic in game 4 posts a +5.9, which is a game high. Jokic's +5.9, again, just like game 3, all of his positive contributions was on the back of his defensive net point score. His offensive net point score was in the negative. And remember, after game 3 and game 4, the discourse in the media was, has Oklahoma City's defense, solved Jokic? He's offensively slumping. He's struggling, on and on. But even despite that, Jokic was a game high net points in game 4. In game 5, things take a massive swing. In game 5, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is an impressive +3.8, which is his second best game on the series. But Jokic is an unfathomable +20.1. And let's just do the Dean Oliver tweet about that right now. So Dean Oliver sent out a tweet after that game 5, which the Nuggets lost, by the way. Dean Oliver says, Nikola Jokic's game last night was, by net points, the best game of the year. And it came in a loss. He added +20.1 points to the Nuggets scoring margin in a game that they lost by 7. So everyone else was worth -27 points, shooting an effective 38% with 14 turnovers. And if you remember, this was the game where, like, in the fourth quarter, Jokic was 4 of 6. His teammates were 0 of 14 in non-garbage time, and then they ultimately improved to 1 of 15 when Murray made a layup in garbage time. So what Dean Oliver is saying, he's saying several things here. Number 1, best game by net points played by any player this year, regular season or playoffs. And that comes on the heels of 2 games and 96 hours worth of commentary about how Oklahoma City's defense has solved Jokic, and he plays the best game of the year by net points. And his offensive net points in that game was plus 15.9. So much for Oklahoma City's defense solving Jokic. And the other thing that's pointed out here is that, damn, nobody came with Jokic. Nobody. If he had just had a little more help from teammates in that game, Denver wins that game on the back of that brilliant Jokic performance, but that didn't happen. And I do think if Denver loses in Game 7, that Game 5 loss is going to absolutely haunt them, especially because of the Jokic masterpiece, best game of the year by net points. And then that was, and by all accounts, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander played a fine game, plus 3.8. And then we get to Game 6, which just finished. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has a very nice game of plus 5.2 in net points, but Jokic has a masterpiece again, plus 9.8, which was a game high. So to summarize here, the totals on this series, which is tied 3-3, SGA's total net points is plus 19.2, and in one instance of the 6 games, he was the game high in net points. Jokic in net points was a plus 30.7, and he was the game high in 4 of the 6 games so far, and that Game 5 hurts. But, there's a bit of a trade-off there because while Jokic was brilliant in Game 5 and nobody came with him, he was atrocious in Game 3, and his teammates carried him. But still, when you are the best player in 4 of the 6 games by net points, you really think that you should have been able to finish off the series. But let's look at this information in the form of a graph. So this is a graph that I had ChatGPT crank out. Cumulative net points progression over the course of the series. So if you start at Game 1, Jokic has a lead in net points over Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's about 8-2 or something. But by the time we get to Game 2, that's flipped. Shai pulls out to a big lead in net points. He has roughly a net 14-point lead. We get to Game 3, both guys' net points slump, but still Shai maintains a commanding net points lead of about 16 or 17. We get to Game 4, Jokic is closing the gap. Shai slumps again, but Jokic has a nice bounce-back game. And now the gap between them has shrunk to about 10 points, with Shai still in front. And then Jokic's 20-point Game 5, he just blazes past SGA. And now Jokic has got 21 net points by Game 5 on the series, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's at 14. And then Jokic has another masterpiece in Game 6. And so by the time we get to Game 6, Jokic net points wise is at 30.7, and SGA is at 19.2. Jokic is, what was that, 11.5 net points ahead of Gilgeous-Alexander. I don't think the only way Gilgeous-Alexander could make up that gap in Game 7 is, a Jokic disaster class like Game 2 or Game 3. And also SGA would have to have a nice game himself but it's not impossible. It could happen, especially if Scott Foster comes back and refs again. So that's going to do it for the MVP analysis, and that will bring me to the final section tonight on the Chris HOJ-cast, coming to you from 2:41 a.m. Central Time. So the last part I want to talk about is a Jokic card from the PC box, and here it is. The Jokic card from the PC box. Let's get this glare off. This is the 2017 Panini Immaculate Collection Logoman autograph 1/1 insert. Nikola Jokic graded PSA 8. I graded this card at Fanatics Fest on site last year after I made a partial cash, partial trade deal with the dealer who owned it at that time. So this card was pulled in a break, if memory serves, like a year ago, maybe a little bit more. And the dealer who got it, I think, moved really quickly, contacted the breaker quickly, and pounced on it. And then he had it at the National last year, and I just felt like it was too expensive, but I really wanted it. And I have no Logoman autograph cards of Jokic, so it just haunted me. And I just kept thinking about trade propositions. I made a trade proposition, but he turned it down. He wanted a little more cash, and I was a little bit off on value with him. But eventually, you know, we kind of met in the middle. I think mostly more I came up to his price, but ultimately I was able to get a deal done, pick the card up from him at Fanatics Fest, took it straight to the PSA booth, got it graded a PSA 8. It was a lot of fun. Like after I got the slab back, I walked around the show and like I went up to dealers like, hey, you want to see a cool card? And like the Logo Man autograph just has an undeniable effect on people. Like I had Christina's little brother was with me when we were walking around some of the tables, and we had a lot of fun like showing people this card, and people would be like, wow, that's cool. And he was kind of like intrigued by how, you know, this card meant, you know, he's not a card collector, so this card really is no different than any other card to him. But him seeing how the Logo Man autograph type of card is universally recognized was, I think it was fun. It was fun for me to watch that happen through his eyes vicariously to the extent that's possible. And so what kind of makes this card neat is this is the first immaculate game-worn Logo Man autograph card for Jokic, which is significant because Jokic has a 2015 rookie season immaculate collection Logo Man autograph card, just not game-worn. So this card is the second card in that lineage, which is exciting. It's Jokic's second game-worn Logo Man autograph, 1/1, ever released, at least as far as my research indicates, because it was released roughly a week after his 2017 National Treasures Logo Man autograph 1/1 was released. And that card belongs to, I'm pretty sure that card belongs to a Jokic collector who's on Instagram. So I'm pretty sure I've located the 27 NT, the 2017 Flawless, also belongs to a Jokic collector on Instagram. And then here's the Immaculate, which lives with me. And the reason why I brought this card out was because Josh and I appeared on Stacking Slabs today to do the Card Letter Confidential episode for this month. And we talked a lot about Logo Man autograph cards and, quite frankly, how they seem to be overpriced. But, you know, that conversation left me thinking about the one Logo Man autograph card that I own, which is this one. And what better night to break this out than after the game. So this is getting awkward holding this. I don't know if you want to see the back. Nothing too special going on the back except those all important game worn words. So, all right, I'm going to go back to enjoying that card and passing out shortly. See you guys on the crossover later tonight being Friday night. And go Nuggets, Game 7. Let's keep this thing going, hopefully.